Hey everybody, this is Dan,
And this is Ron.
and this is Anomaly Questionable Movies, episode 63, I believe.
64. We just
64. Okay,
yeah,
so this is A64, yeah.
yeah.
It's more bits than the other episodes, and we have some really special guests on today. We've been Ron's been doing most of the work on this, but figured out how to get everybody here, and they're all here, and I'm super excited to talk to everybody. So I guess if everybody can just introduce themselves really quick.
So let's go in order in a circle.
Oh.
So Brian, you're the first one going clockwise.
Sure. I'm Brian McCorkle. I'm a member of Varispeed and a composer and human being.
Oh, cool. A human being. Wow.
I know.
We've got at least one other here. So excellent. Gelsey, how about you?
Hello, my name is Gelsey Bell. I'm a singer, songwriter, scholar, sound artist, and other S words I'm sure I'm not thinking of. And I'm also a member of Varispeed.
Cool. And are you a human being?
I'm also a human being, but I'm not really a humanist. So we'll see if that's where the conversation goes.
What was the conversation, Dan, that we had a few weeks ago? Was it, transcendental humanism? Am I getting transhumanism?
No. Transhumanism and transcendental humanism are about as different as two things can be.
Yeah. Okay. We talked about transhumanism. So I learned all about it a few weeks ago. So, okay. And last but not least, Dave.
It's me. I'm Dave Reuter, and third human being of the group Varispeed.
Oh.
Those are important facts.
Cool. All right, and this is in our ever-continuing series of Perfect Lives incarnations. Is that fair? Because this started off with the
right. We were calling it Perfect Lives TNG, I think, in the emails.
Yeah, and then we realized
as in Next Generation.
Yeah, like Star Trek or Degrassi.
Yes.
Yeah,
like it. Cool.
Because it started off with TOS, the original series, in which we had
right.
A lot of.
We haven't covered the animated series yet, but we're getting there.
Totally.
Oh.
Deep Space Nine. I very much enjoyed. I watched the Zoom call you guys did with all the original folks, and very much appreciated being able to hear that conversation.
Thank you.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed that. Yeah, they seem to really love it. I mean, it was. This might sound a little hackney-eyed, but they all clearly loved. Bob. He went by Bob for them, right? He was so they.
That was so surreal, yeah, because I like watched this thing so many times, and then I'm like in a room that's not a room, and everybody's calling this guy Bob.
Oh yeah, he's Bob. Definitely. We never called him anything but Bob either.
Really? Oh, okay. All right. Dan, you have I think that gives you that might finally give you a pass to use Bob. I'm still at Bob Ashley, so yeah.
Right. I mean, I just wasn't sure if it was disrespectful to the religion of subgenius, but
Brian shakes his head. So.
I don't know how much you guys know about the history of our group, but we all worked with him while he was still alive.
Oh yeah, I was catching up on the videos, and I noticed he was in the audience in some of the videos, like bobbing his head. Looked like he was having a really good time, honestly.
Well, so I don't know, just since you brought that up, I know there's probably a more linear way we could do this, but what was it like working with him and having him there? Start off with that.
Yeah, I go for it, Dave?
To clarify, we never worked on Perfect Lives directly with Bob.
Okay.
He was there when we performed it twice. The very first time that Varispeed came into existence was when we performed Perfect Lives in Brooklyn in June of 2011. And the day before, Andrea LaRose, composer, flute player, wonderful person who used to work for Mimi, heard that we were doing this and was like, oh, you should reach out to Bob and Mimi, let them know you're doing it. And I had both of their emails somehow, but had never really had an extended conversation with them. So the day before, I emailed them and said, hey, we're doing this weird version of Perfect Lives in Brooklyn tomorrow, in case you want to know. And then they were like, great, we'll be there. So that was remarkable and wonderful.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, there was a bit of fangirling happening from all of us. And people getting like, what? This was like really relaxed and casual, and all of a sudden feels so much heavier than it was. Yeah, and I just want to say, but we did all work with him on That Morning Thing and Crash, so on different productions of his.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
and Eliza and I also worked with him, with Mirtha, who collaborates with us a lot on World War III, just the highlights.
Okay, so now backtracking. So how did you start? How did you get involved? And again, we want to hear anything and everything you want to talk about with Perfect Lives as being the intro part, but you can focus all on that. You could talk about anything else. But how'd you start?
So I guess, what's the history of Varispeed? How do you guys all find each other and come to do all this stuff? And what is this stuff? We're here to fill in the listeners.
Totally. I think Dave should probably give us the origin story.
Sure. For me, I went to Wesleyan and I studied with Alvin Lucier, who Alvin and Bob were longtime friends and collaborators. And when I was taking a course, which was like Alvin's intro to experimental music course, Bob and Jackie Humbert and Tom Hamilton came and performed Empire and Au Pair, which really blew me away. That was 2002. A couple years later, a friend was taking the same course, found the VHS of Perfect Lives in the library. We watched it. We were both totally blown away. I can fast forward through most of this. Basically, like starting in 2004, I think like both of you listening to what you said on the past podcasts, just burrowed deeper and deeper into the piece. I bought the libretto. I bought a second copy of the libretto that I could mark up. I bought it on DVD when it came out. I started going to all the performances that I could when I moved to New York in 2005 that Bob was giving. I would talk to him occasionally. And somewhere along the line, I had a bunch of friends that were doing things like reading Philip K. Dick's Valis out loud in public in one go. And that seemed like a good thing to do, just to take a book and like read it aloud.
Yeah, they used to do that in Brooklyn with the Making of Americans. They would go for 48 hours straight and read the whole Gertrude Stein book.
I didn't know that. That sounds cool.
Oh, yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
So like exactly that idea. And I became friends with Eliza, who's not on the call, in 2009, who also has her own origin story about when she was a kid. Her dad gave her a tape of private parts, and we met at a Robert Ashley concert at La Mama. And so then Eliza and I in 2009 in the summer just like took copies of the libretto and read it out loud in public with no real audience to speak of. And then the rest of the group, so Brian, Gelsey, Paul, and I were all performing in a show that Panoply Performance Lab and Thing NY did in 2011 called Time, A Complete Explanation in 3 Parts. And we were just sort of talking about Bob's work, how much we liked it, and this idea came up, and I was like, oh, I did this thing with my friend Eliza in the past, and basically we just decided, why don't we do that again, but with 5 of us. And we planned it a little more. We would go, the idea was that, you know, in the score, there are times and generic locations for each episode. So, you know, the supermarket at 1 p.m. and the bank at, no, I'm sorry, I'm screwing this up. The bank at 1 p.m., the supermarket at 3 p.m., the bar at 11 p.m., whatever. So you would just go to that place at that time and read this. And one of you should take it from here.
Yeah, well, just to say, so in the original, obviously, the times are out of order. So you're going in this different order when you go episode by episode. Right. But we decided to do it in time order in those locations so that we start in the park and then we go to the bank, and then we go to the supermarket. And the idea being that you just spend this long day in these site-specific locations experiencing the piece. And it started, you know, the first time we did it as the 5 of us, we weren't called Varispeed yet. We had no need for a band name at that point. And we had like a Casio keyboard, and we got a friend who plays tabla to come and do the backyard, but like nothing was rehearsed. It was all very casual, and I was living in Brooklyn, and I had a backyard, so we used my backyard and my living room and my local supermarket. And the idea was all places that we could walk to and the audience could walk to easily. The bar we were planning to go to, like, wouldn't let us, so we had to go to another bar, you know. So it was all very, very casual that first time. But Bob and Mimi came and really enjoyed it. And so they basically hooked us up with getting a gig to do it again in Manhattan. And then that version was the version where we were much more established. We got permits, we got a Times review. It was like more of we rehearsed.
And that's it's in the videos online.
So the videos online, we have we have video of Perfect Lives Manhattan, and then we have video of Perfect Lives Catskills. And so we've done, we did a version in New Jersey City, we did a version in Pittsburgh. We hope to do more versions in the future when that's easier to do again. So
I got a really big backyard now. You can't really walk to anything from there, but you're welcome to it.
It's really
where
are you? There's a living room. There's a shed. I guess maybe if there was, I don't know if there's a lost episode called The Shed, but
we'd have to write I think we'd have to write a new one for that. Yeah.
Oh, but Gelsey, you were asking Dan where he is.
I'm in Mechanicville, New York. I just moved about 2 weeks ago, so I'm in a house. I literally have no neighbors.
Congratulations.
It's pretty. I have internet, but I can burn things in the backyard. It's like kind of a dream.
And where are you, Ron?
I'm in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Okay. So
cool.
I've got a smaller place, but my internet is more stable.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to burn anything outside, though. I'll get in trouble. So.
Totally.
Yeah. Wait, now I can't remember. Did we go over where everyone is? Was that before the call or after we started?
We did not go over where everyone is.
Okay, where's everyone? Starting with you, since you brought it up.
I'm in Brooklyn.
Okay. Which part of Brooklyn?
I'm in Sunset Park in South Brooklyn.
All right. And Dave, you're in Brooklyn as well? So.
Sure am. I'm in Clinton Hill.
And what about?
And I'm in Hurley, New York, south of Mechanicville, about like 100 miles or so. But yeah, I've also got a backyard. What?
You're over by like Poughkeepsie?
North of there, right by Kingston, just outside of Kingston.
Oh, Kingston. Okay, yeah, I've been Kingston.
Yeah. Ironically, I now live right near where we did Perfect Lives Catskills and work at the library. So I walk by the park that we did the park at all the time. So everything has come full circle for me in a really weird way regarding this piece. But that's just one of many coincidences surrounding Bob.
Cool. How did you end up picking the places that you performed at, or how did you end up at these very diverse venues?
I mean, it's kind of if someone hires us to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with Brooklyn and Manhattan, we didn't have much of a budget. I mean, we had no budget for Brooklyn. But then going forward, it's like, if someone can give us a budget so we can do it.
Okay.
For an opera production, it's very cheap.
Oh yeah, for opera, so cheap.
But our connections. When we did it in Manhattan, it was part of Performa 2011. When we did it in the Catskills, it was through Matt Tremper Arts, where Gelsey and I had been with a different artist the summer before. When we did it in Pittsburgh, it was through the Ali Musica and the Pittsburgh Festival of New Music, Pittsburgh New Music Festival, I forget. And in Jersey City, it was through Convivo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Paul lives in Jersey City, so Paul's very connected into the Jersey City art world.
Okay.
It's kind of a weird thought. There's the living room, there's the park, there's the backyard, but all of them were technically in the kitchen.
What do you mean?
Well, because that's where all the original performances were in the kitchen, right? That performance art space, but there's no episode called The Kitchen.
Nope.
It's true. We have, as a group, also cooked in the kitchen of the kitchen for what it's worth.
When we perform at the kitchen, we make sure to cook there.
So it has an actual. I've never been inside the space, but they have an act. They have like a stove and.
Well, I mean, like most, like most theaters, there's a place where people can, there's a green room kind of area.
Cool.
The kitchen.
It's a theater. It's not like you go in and there's a kitchen right there that you're performing next to.
They're also on their third or fourth location. I mean, the kitchen between 1978 and 1983 was in a totally different place than the kitchen is where we've performed there.
Okay.
But
and so I think Ron was about to ask a much more substantial question than that.
Oh yes. So it's about when you're doing the performance in which you're going from location to location. Well, first, just in terms of the audience, how did you get the audience? Did people know about it, and you knew that they were all coming there, or did people just show up, in the street? And then also, did people follow you from location to location?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mix. So it's definitely, part advertising. But then the supermarket is a really great episode for people to stumble upon. The park, people often stumble upon. And we always have people who come to all or almost all of the episodes, which is always really special. I mean, and the bar episode is a party. Because we and those like long hauler audience members are pretty delirious by that point.
So the bar that wouldn't let you in, they were missing out on a lot of liquor purchases that evening.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's probably true. We also, it's been a mix of people who are just like, we've had people come who really know the work well, and like in an opera-y way of sort of like the person following their score at the opera at the Met or something. Like people will come and follow along or know. I mean, I think maybe
it's also sold. Like I feel like a few of the times Mimi's been there, and then she'll sell the libretto, so people will buy the libretto and then like start following along.
Right. And when we do, I mean, I think maybe the central question about interpreting this is like, what is the actual text of Perfect Lives? What is the particular arrangement of each time they did it? It could be different. And so like some of the things that we do, like for instance, the bar, there's the kind of like tunes that pop up in the bar, like do do da 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 da. But like there's arrangement, or like the Yukuku song in the bank. There's like the hookier parts of the piece, whether that was written by Bob or Blue or Peter. So there's a sort of, I don't know, I imagine that for the people who know the piece well, or for people who've seen us do it in the past, every time we do it, we tend to rearrange at least part of it too. So whether that means just like a different person is the lead voice for a different episode, or we like really totally reimagine the sound world, that's happened from arrangement to arrangement too.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of know. I think I was watching a video of the living room that was, it looked like it was being done, but yeah, like everybody was taking turns reading parts of it, and it almost looked like a Shabbat service. Like everybody would get up to the mic and read out of the book, and
everyone makes an aliyah, reads their portion. And
wow, I should have remembered that. They really should not have like let me pass that thing. But
remembering the word aliyah?
Well, no, it's just like I got bar mitzvah. Technically, I'm a man, but I can't even remember the word aliyah. But I remembered everybody was walking up to the podium and sing talking and out of a book, and it was like a really big deal that you read it out of the book directly. Like it was seen as being disrespectful if you tried to do it off the top of your head, because I forget exactly why, but they seemed, the rabbi seemed kind of salty about that when one of the kids was like, you know all this stuff already off the, why do you need the book? Why are you taking out this big like lamb skin every week?
You got to use the yad though. The whole
right,
fun is using the yad.
And I mean, honestly, when I'm watching it with the libretto, that's kind of what it feels like. Is like I'm following along with this thing. If I don't have the tangible text in front of me, I'm not picking up as much.
Yeah, there was in the Catskills. I skipped an entire page during one of the performances because a friend of mine brought a beer out and put it in front of me, and it distracted me, so I completely skipped a page. And Bob was there. It was so embarrassing. And don't know if anybody would know, but now I just want to make sure that they know, because I'd rather be embarrassed in public.
It's full transparency. Let people know what's going on.
A little quicker.
Well, Dan had actually noticed at one point a change to the libretto, or what did you?
I think it was a change to the libretto. I was watching the park, and I think it had to be the Brooklyn version because it didn't look like the Catskills, but I could be wrong. It was I think it was on your official webpage, and there was like some kind of passage about hunting that I picked up, and I don't remember that being in the libretto or the
it's in there.
It's in there. Okay.
If you know the private parts version, the private parts and the Perfect Lives versions of the
very different.
The
right,
are different.
Okay, so that was in the private parts version. Okay.
Yeah, private parts also says things like and how do you and when it comes to you that you are dead, instead of that the light has changed. So there's a lot of differences between those two that are very once you start to notice them, you kind of learn more about what Bob's talking about in each one, and maybe what the concepts are that are being worked with. Because when you just watch the video of the park, it could just be a masturbation joke.
Oh yeah, that's what I always kind of figured it was. Yeah,
which it is, and it's a film metaphor, but it's also about death and life and
stupid horses.
And stupid horses.
And maybe the Wizard of Oz?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, because the mid, you can't talk about the Midwest. It either goes towards Psycho or the Wizard of Oz.
Right.
And I think Mimi said in the episode that you did with Mimi and John and Carlotta and everybody, the pack of motorcycles was like one of the remnants from when Phil McKenna asked Bob to do the Wizard of Oz treatment. So that's like one of the vestiges that is still there. That anyway.
Wait,
yeah, totally.
Wait, I never heard this story. There was going to be a Robert Ashley Wizard of Oz.
Well, yeah, that was the original inspiration for the piece.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah, that's where it started. Was as this like adaptation of the Wizard of Oz. And I mean, it's more clear in the backyard, but this idea of like the female character being Dorothy, and that was kind of the kernel from which the backyard and the park sprung. And then what became Perfect Lives obviously went in all these other directions. But that was also the idea of the Midwest and why this was the Midwest opera.
Yeah.
Dan, it's time for you to watch it now a 37th time.
Yeah. I couldn't tell if I was like, yeah, I mean, there's probably a bunch more times I'm going to have to watch this before. I think we also let Mimi and those people off the phone too early if we didn't even get to that.
Oh yeah. I mean, but the thing with this piece, I mean, all of Bob's work, but Perfect Lives in particular, is like there's just more and more. Like it's never ending.
It's like fractal.
Yeah, you never get to the center of the onion. Like you're never going to understand it all. That's just not how the logic of it works. And also part of why I think the people who become real Ashley heads that really like fall for this piece are the people who love that aspect of it. I mean, certainly that's the case for me. It's like, yes, I love fantasy fiction and I want like the world building is so huge. And I feel that way about Perfect Lives too.
And when I remember also a couple times we would ask Bob for some context or some information, and the answer that he gave was like just pulling a thread, but like definitely not getting any clarity. Like we asked him about the living room, about just the like opening page or two of the living room. He's like, "Oh yeah, I wrote the intro, and then I was imagining this ghost made of lint." And we're like, okay, and when you read it again, it's like talks about it's belted, and it's like, oh, okay, it's like a ghost with a belt that's made of lint. And then he's like, yeah, and the rest of it, like I just thought about it for a while, and then like one day I just wrote the rest of the living room in one day. And he would like add something like this, and be like,
yeah,
and it was fascinating, like beautiful image, but it doesn't make it clearer or like more linear in any way.
I remember for Perfect Lives Brooklyn, this being the first day that I'd ever met Bob and Mimi, and we just performed The Backyard, and Eliza, one of the members that's not here, had just done the lead narrator vocals, and we were talking to Bob about that episode, and he started going into this long thing about how the character who's doing all the counting was in love with her father, and all of this like Oedipal stuff. And it was just like the conversation got really heavy really quickly. You know, like in that like artistic performer brain, but also just of like, oh, I'm meeting this person. Like this is the first time I'm really talking to this person. And now this is what we're going to talk about.
Well, it probably helps that some of the relationships aren't entirely clear. Or actually, Dan, wasn't it you that
I mean, they're not clear at all. Like the first 8 or 10 times I watched the thing, I literally couldn't tell like who, like I understood the 2 people in the car were probably doing it because they were getting married.
4 people
Beyond
in the
that,
car.
like I couldn't even. Oh, okay. Well, 2. I don't think all 4 of them were doing it though. But although I could be wrong, because it took like forever to figure out like, wait, there are actual distinct characters. I tried to read it as a thing with a plot. I wasn't getting anywhere. Ron has the copy with all the like embarrassing undergraduate notes all over it that's fallen apart. And so I just was like, okay, this is. I think I just finished reading Gravity's Rainbow when I got into this, and so I was like, all right, I'm just gonna look at this as like kind of like how Stanley Elkin would describe his books, like it's a cabinet of language. There's a lot of patterns, but if you're looking for a plot, you're going to get lost in the woods. And I just started like marking it up like that. And that was funny talking to everybody, and they're like, no, there's a clear plot. There's clear things that have everything happened. You know, like you listen to John Sanborn talk about the thing. It's like almost linear.
Oh yeah, it does feel clear. And I will say that there is nothing like performing the piece and arranging the piece to make those kinds of decisions and find certain clarities. Yeah, I mean,
it is not clear to me at all. I am so glad that you find it clear. I have been working with this piece for years, and I love it, and I've read it a billion times, but I still don't. I mean, the bank has a clear plot, but everything else, I'm like, I don't know what this is.
Hilarious.
I feel like, yeah, he was writing these at different times, and like the backyard and the park were meant to, I don't know if they were meant to be, but they were like written for one purpose. And there's a sort of clear identification with Bob and with Mimi in those characters also. And like you put other allegories of whatever it is, of like the Tibetan Book of the Dead or of the Wizard of Oz or whatever. And then the other episodes, it's not that they're like shoehorned in or that they're made to fit in a way that they don't fit. They absolutely fit together. But yeah, if you're trying to like look for a clear A equals B thing, and like, again, like you talked to Bob about the supermarket and like who the oldsters were, and he would be like, oh yeah, I had a dream that my landlady Helen and John Cage made me food, and it was stone soup, and John Cage was like, here, have some of this soup, it's made from a stone. So it's like Helen and John, the oldsters, fit into this town, and I feel like what he has to say in the supermarket is this beautiful thought that's so articulated well within the whole piece, but at the same time it's totally functioning as his landlady and John Cage, and you're never going to know that, and you don't need, and if you do know that, it doesn't solve it any more than anything else. You know, it's like it both is linear and it's totally not linear.
Yeah, totally.
John Cage is the oldsters.
Yes and no, right? Like it comes from a dream that he had that featured Helen, but that doesn't mean that it's John Cage per se.
Right.
But
it's just like I'm just, you know, because I always kind of like, you know, I'm young enough where the only way that I ever approached John Cage was as like one of those marble busts at the library or something, right? and so here, you know, and granted, you know, if he worked directly with the guy, like, you know, I tease John Jost like that all the time, that he's, you know, cranky old man or whatever. But sorry, I'm just processing this. It's funky.
People are people.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. I mean, Robert Ashley had commissioned John Cage and Robert Rauschenberg and a bunch of other amazing humans to do work in Ann Arbor in the 60s. I mean, so they definitely knew each other and worked together. And yeah, absolutely. It's contemporary.
They knew each other quite well. Yeah. I mean, Mimi was John's agent. So.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
yeah,
I did not
that's
know
how
that.
she got started. So she, you know, she was, you know, a number of artists' agents, but John Cage was her first one. So Yeah, so the connection between those two is old, and it's also just like the New York experimental scene is not huge, so you know everyone knows each other.
And I think you guys touched on like one of the most compelling things about the piece, or for me at least, which is the it doesn't seem to be guided entirely by his conscious mind. He's like letting dreams and all these things that don't have that are maybe lacking in a certain tangibility float in there, and I think that's what lets it kind of grow and evolve. Like it's sort of moving with you as the viewer versus it doesn't feel taxidermied, right? Like you ever read a book and it's sort of like it feels like a dead bug with a bunch of pins in it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of people of Bob's generation, he was also influenced by Surrealism and Dadaism and definitely by James Joyce. So I think that kind of logic was, I mean, Bob used that kind of logic so well, but it wasn't. I don't think the idea of using it wasn't unusual.
Which was also interesting to match with him being like trained very much as a serialist. And like, you know, when you look at Improvement, for instance, there's a Passacaglia, which is like the tones that underlie the whole piece. So
the 12-tone bar thing.
I don't remember how many bars. Do you remember how many bars the Passacaglia is, guys?
Well, that's what serialism is. Yes, it's 12 tone bars.
Yes.
Right.
But in this case, like when you sort of matched that to Perfect Lives, the grids that John talked a lot about with you, and the idea of systematizing and like rigorously measuring out, okay, there's going to be 7 episodes, they're all going to be 72 beats per minute, but in this, you know, in the park it's going to be 13 beat structure, and in the supermarket it's going to be 5, and whatever. Like the way that he would have this very strong skeleton of structure, whether that's harmonic or rhythmic, undergirding these things, is, I think, so interesting in the counterpoint to how the language and some of the other images and visuals and whatever work with what he did. And it's not necessarily apparent if you look at it that it has that structure underneath, but that was very much Bob's training, and like it's there in most of his pieces that I've seen when you look for it.
And in fact, a lot of our arrangements that we've done as a group, sometimes people will choose to disregard the beat structure altogether. Like, for example, when we first did Perfect Lives Brooklyn and I did the bank, I stayed up all night the night before listening to the recording and marking every time he breathed. And so then I was just like, well, I'll just breathe whenever Bob breathed, and then that'll be good.
Wow.
It was fun. It's like,
yeah, that's part of the fun of every new arrangement, right? Is you know, finding new ways to get the in. I didn't mean to cut you off, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, it has that feeling of like a lot of experimental music at that point, where it feels more like a set of loose instructions than like, you know, a dictate coming from the top of the mountain.
Yeah, totally. I mean, part of the fun I think we've had is figuring out how, like, in my opinion, is in order to do a piece like Perfect Lives, you have to do an arrangement. Like, there's no other way to do it. It's not like doing a Beethoven symphony. You have to make it your own. And so figuring out, okay, well, what of the original are you going to keep? Like, we always kept the text. We were like, the text is sacrosanct. We'll make sure we have that. But then in terms of other aspects, like, you know, we might keep the idea of, okay, we want to have tabla in the backyard, or we really want these synth lines that Blue was doing in the park or something like that. But and then every time we get asked to do it again, the group gets together and is like, okay, well, who wants to arrange what episodes? Who wants to do lead vocals on what? Like, what do we want to do the same? What do we want to do different? And it keeps it really, really fun.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds from, and Dan, please correct me on this if I didn't quite get it, but when we talked to John Sanborn, it sounded like that's what's expected. That's what Bob would want. that he doesn't want somebody doing exactly the same, you know.
Yeah, he was kind of describing it as like you had to come up with your own part in some substantial way. It was sort of like, and I guess that's the, at least as best as I understood. I don't have a huge amount. I read a few books in college, but I don't understand music theory in any deep or substantial way. But like serialism, the whole point was, or structuralism in cinema, which I think I understand a bit better than serialism, but you set up a few arbitrary guidelines so that the rest of the stuff you can kind of go loose and wild.
I think that's
a template idea.
It's a perfect allegory, or not allegory. Well, maybe it's a perfect thing to put alongside Bob's work, structuralism in film, in that way. Absolutely. I remember we were working on that morning thing, and I was trying to put the melody to "You and the Night and the Music," "You and the Night and the Music," into these frog sounds he wanted us to make. And he noticed me doing it, and he was like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that?" And I was like, well, I thought it would be interesting. I was just playing, you know, I thought we could do whatever. And he was like, no. I'm not interested in pitch development. I'm like, that's all I have to say about it. Okay. So that comes up just because you don't need to know anything about music theory. It's not about that. It's closer to structuralism in film. I think absolutely. It's a great thing to bring up in relationship to Ashley.
Right. It's like you're making your own set of Rorschach blots and then interpreting them for yourself.
And I think the degree to which you can see it as a living thing already, like for me, the first time I saw the Four American Composers documentary, where you get a little bit of a taste of each episode done live in London, is that you see, so Mimi alluded or various people alluded in your conversation with the original folks, that there is a score that looks much more like Bob's later pieces like Improvement or Dust, where there's line numbers and there's beats where you can see like where the beat should fall. That exists for Perfect Lives, and Mimi shared it with us between when we did the Brooklyn and Manhattan performances. But if you follow what Bob did, Bob is not necessarily doing that. Or he's certainly, like, I love when you watch the Four American Composers in the park, there's a part he goes, "In a fluted plastic glass," like he does it so different from the main recording. And Jill and David also on the background vocals, the parts that are italicized, which are normally the parts that the chorus is doing, it's just like they've been performing the piece for a while. So Bob was like, "I trust you to make your own decisions." And as soon as I think we saw that, it was just like, oh, great. This is license that he has of when they were doing it live in the 70s and 80s. Everybody was expected to keep this as a breathing thing. It's not like you do it every time the same way. So I think we've taken inspiration directly from the way that they did it then.
Absolutely. And the Greenaway version of Perfect Lives is the first one I actually thought was really, really good. Like when I saw that, I was like, wow, this piece could be really good. Because honestly, like I love the video now, but when I first saw it, no offense to anyone involved in it, they're all amazing, but I hated it so much. I thought it was awful.
I'm kind of, would you want to expand on that? Because like I know the first time I saw it, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like I had no idea, but I like, you know, it's like trying drugs for the first time, right? Like you just sort of like, this is, or like beer or something, like this tastes bad, and
right, absolutely.
I feel like this, and then you just keep drinking beer, and then eventually you're like, I like beer.
Well, for me, I think it was this inborn like hatred, you know, as like a child of like the late 80s and the 90s of like standard synth sounds. And you know, like there was something about the sounds. Yeah, there was like something about the sounds. I couldn't deal with it. I was like, ah.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, I was born in the early 80s and like, you know, was a teenager in the 90s when it was all like Nirvana and grunge, and it was like synths were not cool. So I remember like here, you know, the synth heaviness of it was really off-putting because of having grown up in this like reaction against and away from synths, which is really ironic because like, I mean, now, and certainly when we started working on, you know, Varispeed and doing Perfect Lives, I'd like re-fallen in love with synths. And
oh yeah, I totally remember that because my brother-in-law, who was like, he's older than me, and he was the guy who was kind of slipping me records when I was a teenager, like they were illicit material. he was like, he's like in no uncertain term because he was like a hard rock. He's like really into the replacements. He's like synths ruined popular music. Pretty much. That was kind of like drill. And that was like the vibe you would get.
Yeah, that was the vibe. Folks. But now, I mean, we don't agree anymore.
Right. Everybody came around on it.
Well, and the Greenway documentary is such a good example. I mean, you can watch it for free on UbuWeb. It's fantastic. I mean, the synths on that one, I heard that, and then I was like, oh, I see what he was doing. Oh, I get it now, because it's just so beautiful. And without the synths, it wouldn't be as like magical.
Mm.
My go-to for synths is, and you can tell where when I grew up, is the dogs barking jingle bells.
The dog sound synth is the best. Yeah. Yes, I'm with you.
There was other stuff too with synthesizers, but that's the one that stands out the most. So, although there was so much you could do with those dogs.
But it's so interesting, right? Because the piece, you go back to the original, and it feels so much of its time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I feel like the version that we've done that definitely has some synth heavy arrangements is very much like using the nostalgia for that time, which I think, fashion.
Well, that's huge cycles, now. That's like, that's
exactly. It's got
that's
cool
the zeitgeist
again.
At the moment.
Yeah, it's very strange how that happens.
So do you do anything else as Varispeed, or do you get together as Varispeed specifically? Am I pronouncing it right too?
Yeah. So we got together. So the name Varispeed actually comes from Bob.
Mm-hmm.
But we've also done a 12-hour version of Empty Words. And yeah, we've done a lot of other stuff. At the moment, the big project we were working on before the pandemic hit was writing music for something called the Blurring Test, which is basically a song cycle about AI. We're all composer performers. So originally Varispeed stuff was always arranging like great epic works of, the experimental avant-garde. But, with the Blurring Test, we're just writing music together.
Mm-hmm. Dan, I think we need to do this as a video because
it's got to be a video. Yeah, Brian's like knocking it out of the park on this one. Yeah,
I've just got a bunch of stuff. I'm used to living in New York City with no room, and now here I am in upstate. I've got all this room. Like, I can find all my stuff now.
Yeah, like totally. Like the last 2 weeks, it's like I don't feel like a hoarder anymore. Like literally overnight. Because like also is just like you're drowning in books, et cetera, et cetera. Now it's just like, oh, okay, it's like big. Yeah. Like when I was in New York City, oh my God, I bought way too many books. I was like literally, I was like pushing them off my bed to go to sleep. That was like not good, but like.
You knew that eventually you'll get the. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I feel you. I have a lot of books. This is just some of them.
Ooh la la, Brian. Ooh, very nice.
We're gonna build another one soon. Yes. No, I want to see yours, Nick.
Oh yeah. Well, here I can give you the tour. Like there's a whole room worth of crap. The spare room I just kind of turned into a library basically. I had 10,000 books at one point because I was working as a used book dealer, and I bought out the collection of this. There was like this hoarder lady that died down the street from me. I walked into this garage. There were 94 file boxes, and her kids were just like, we don't want to deal with this. So I had $200 in my pocket. I said, would you take $200 for all of it? And he said, if you're willing to carry it, sure. And then I was like, what did I just do? I'm like, so I wasn't in New York City at that point, thank God. So I actually had a little bit of space to kind of sort everything. But I think I still got 15 file boxes. That was like 10 years ago. But
I used to have 1,000 books, and I donated 900 of them because so many of them I barely even cracked open. Like I cracked them open at the bookstore,
right?
And I put them down and got another copy, and that was as far as it got. So I only have 100 books left. So you probably, well, actually, Dave, we haven't seen your book collection.
I would have to go through several rooms, but here's what I can show you. I run a label called Gold Bolus Recordings, and the library for Gold Bolus is there down to this. So this is the when you go to Mimi's office and you can see the inventory of lovely records. It's much more impressive, but this is the smaller version of Gold Bolus Recordings.
Yeah, we need to do some kind of like avant-garde cribs. Like that needs to be a thing. Like when the pandemic started, I was watching so much cribs, and I was like, everybody I know has a more interesting house than this.
You know all the people on cribs?
No, I don't know them, and that's why I was willing to talk shit. But
right, I mean, just imagining it would be a lot of like, this is where I eat, and this is where I shit, and this is where I sleep.
Wait, that's my apartment. How do you? So you've been here. So.
All right, Steve Lack could do an amazing cribs. That guy's got like some crazy shit in his house.
That?
Oh, sorry, that was just a friend of mine. He was the guy in Scanners, the guy that like staring at people and their heads blew up, and like he breaks the internet with his mind at the end of the movie.
Wait, say that. Oh no, I don't want to talk about the end of the movie yet until we review it.
Okay, yeah, it's.
I mean, that's a 40-year-old spoiler.
Kind of thing. But yeah, he basically stares at a public payphone and the internet breaks, and I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. So that's all it took in 1980 to break the internet, I think.
Yeah, it was a very fragile thing.
What do you got, Brian?
I got the score to Crash.
Oh, nice.
So. Perfect Lives, right? When you get the book, it's all kind of laid out in this very suggestive manner, with each line kind of having a specific amount of space. And in his later scores, you can really see that he makes it kind of explicit when he wants to. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yeah. That is.
Each one of these is a beat, and then each line gets its allotted text.
Right, and it ends up looking kind of like some of those like concrete poetry books from the I think that was the technical like the 20s.
Yeah, definitely. And like what's his face? Church car.
Americanian, yeah. Yeah, Americanian. I should say also, so we've done, as Varispeed, we've done Perfect Lives 5 times, and then as individuals, the 5 of us have been involved in those other productions. So when we've done Crash or Improvement or That Morning Thing, that's not a Varispeed version per se, it's just the 5 of us, and often Amirtha Kadambi as a 6th that are doing it. So your question before about like, what does Varispeed do? As individuals, we're involved in the Bob stuff. As Varispeed, the only piece of Bob's we've done is Perfect Lives, except one time 4 of us did Public Opinion Descends Upon the Demonstrators.
I think we all did it. We were all there.
Kelsey wasn't there.
Oh, Kelsey, you weren't there. I imagine you there when I think about it. But yeah, that's true.
I wish I'd been there. But we also do a piece of his called
Love is a Good Example.
Yeah, Love is a Good Example.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So where did the name come from?
So have you heard his piece Automatic Writing?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I got it. It's on the wall over there.
Nice. Nice. Oh, great. So if you listen closely, I don't remember the time code or anything, but he does murmur quite rapturously a few times, the Varispeed.
Oh, you're totally right. Yeah. I didn't
he has
connect
these
it.
like 4-syllable phrases that were the ones that always came back when he was having his Tourette's moments. And the Varispeed was one of them.
Varispeed. What were the other 3? I'm trying to remember. It was like...
You guys are all
fucking
clever. The Varispeed, and I'm forgetting the 4th.
Ah.
It's in one of the essays, though.
It's in a book that's right there.
Yeah.
So
maybe it'll come to me. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, so what does Varispeed mean? Or
variable speed. So unlike old stereos, there would be a little knob to vary the speed.
Oh, yep, I still got it on my...
Like a tape deck, yeah.
Yeah. The bias tuning is what it was called sometimes, yeah.
Right.
Okay. Dan, why didn't you prep me for this?
Because I didn't actually know that's what the Varispeed was. I always knew it as bias tuning or just like that blinking red light on the turntable.
Yeah, we just
actually
put,
the light isn't.
that blinking red light on the turntable was not the best band name.
Yeah, no, the blinking. Yeah, no, that's
The blinking.
that's not even a good name for the blinking red light on the turntable.
So what have you been working on during the during Zoom days, or have you?
Us individually?
Yeah.
Or individually as a group, or
well, you said that there was you were preparing for another performance, and that the pandemic.
Yeah, we'd had a performance scheduled in June that didn't happen because of the pandemic. So I feel like as a band we haven't been doing that much, but we individually have done a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is the only thing we've really been working on as a band. But yeah, individually, we've been doing lots of stuff. Gelsey, you just released an album, like relatively recently.
Well, yeah, I made a sound
Karen?
walk that I
Oh, right.
released
Sorry.
on Camp.
I think of it as an album because I can't do the walk. I'm jealous.
Yeah, totally. Some people do it as a sound walk. Some people listen to it as an album. Yeah, and then Dave and I are part of another group called Thing NY.
Also with Paul, who's not here.
Yeah, also with Paul, who's not here. So we've done a bunch of we collaboratively wrote a bunch of music for online operas, basically, just like really getting to know what performing and composing for Zoom was like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what's it like?
Just had a latency. It's full of unexpected awkwardness and possibility.
But it was fun. I mean, yeah, as a group that is rooted most in music, when we made the second piece that we made, A Series of Landscapes, we ended up making a piece that was kind of as visually focused, if not more visually focused than it was sonically focused. But Thing NY, like Varispeed, is very flexible, and we all have experience that draws on visual things and sonic things and language things, and so
yeah, the interdisciplinarity I think has always been important to all of us, even if music is a big part of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, Paul just put out a video and single called Just Love, which comes from one of those, which is very cool. Okay. And Eliza is making a lot of ceramic things, and I'm finishing an album of stuff under my name. And
what kind of stuff?
Kind of chambery pop, I guess. So
I can get down with that.
It'll be out sometime next year. Who knows when? But yeah, that's what I'm working on. Brian and Gelsey, I'm sure you have other things too.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing some online performances. I've been programming kind of what would you call it? Like environments for live performance. So I did a 3D one at the beginning of the pandemic, where I was basically walking around a virtual world with like toilet paper and COVID viruses and barricades flying around, and it was all connected to musical material. More recently, I did a live performance where I had a computer that was using speech recognition try to tell what the instruments that I was improvising on were saying. So I've been doing all sorts of stuff like that. There was something else, but I can't remember. Maybe I'll remember later.
Well, and I'm going to be at Mount Tremper again next week. So hopefully Brian will come and I don't know, we'll have like a bonfire or something.
Well, we're going to talk about hungry listening, which I can see on your shelf right behind your head.
Oh yeah, that's very possible.
But yeah, let's have a bonfire.
Book party.
Party.
Totally. Yeah, I
Keep
guess
the bonfire and the book party separate. So.
Right.
Oh, always.
Indeed.
I'm actually a librarian, so the books will be safe.
Yes. Yeah, and I guess one of the things, I mean, maybe is worth mentioning that, so I wrote a chapter of my dissertation on Bob's work, focusing mostly on Perfect Lives, but not exclusively. So there's also, there's some literature. There's lots of literature out there about this stuff. And also that's why I have so many books and I can't get rid of them. It's like a professional hazard of being a scholar.
Dan also wrote a dissertation on Perfect Lives.
Well, I wrote my undergrad, and it was I got a C-, and I deserved a C- because that was only 8 or 10 times into going through it, and somehow for half of it I was like I don't I'm like saying a bunch of things about geometry that I'm not sure makes sense. For some reason, I'm talking about Red Sovine and like spoken word truck driving records for 5 pages.
So
this is kind of a mess.
Thesis.
That sounds amazing.
I mean,
I'd like to see somebody write a dissertation about Convoy and Perfect Lives. Maybe like there's like some.
Well, you ever heard Teddy Bear, that like record where it's like spoken? Like I kept going between, because in my head it was like, okay, the clear predecessors to this are like I don't know. I guess because I was just young and that was what I was exposed to, is like spoken word truck driving records, Lou Reed and Lenny Bruce. Just like, where is this line between speech and music? And I think I just like, the first time I heard Teddy Bear, I don't know if you ever heard Teddy Bear. It's like this incredibly maudlin story about this kid with cancer contacts these CB truckers, or these truckers with CB radios, and they all just like gather, and it's like, this is the first thing we can rally behind besides like pilot station waitresses is it's singular, huh?
I said I got that joke.
I mean, because like when I was doing the used book deal, I was doing a lot of like and you're buying these giant lots of records, and you're getting, people bought an ungodly number of like compilations of songs about truck drivers in the 1970s. I probably had like 20 or 30 of them at one point, and it's kind of fascinating because it's like, it's almost its own kind of structuralism. Like there's the arbitrary thing of you have to talk about truck driving, but then within that, they don't always manage to keep it fresh, but there's more variety than you would expect from 30 records about people sitting in trucks all day.
Well, they have to drive too.
Right. They got to drive. They had CB radios back in the day, which probably made it a little more interesting. And, having driven around the country, there's definitely some like wide variations in pilot station coffee. And
absolutely. I once played Go Fish with a trucker on a CB radio. And I was on tour with a bunch of people. Somebody had a CB and we were like, let's play cards with the truckers. And it's hard because you know exactly what they're holding. So it was kind of weird.
How do you know what they're holding?
I mean, you know which cards they've got, because we had all the cards, they didn't have any, they were driving. So we had to tell them what they had. And then It wasn't a perfect system, but I think we were like 11, so it worked. Yeah. It worked. I don't know how old the trucker was, but he was a nice guy.
That sounds like it could have been an avant-garde record if you found the right, just like record. I would listen to that for 40 minutes for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And you've already got the band name, the red blinking light on the record player.
Yes, that's it. We've got it. It's fantastic. I was debating on whether or not to show you guys Maneuvers for Small Hands, another one of Bob's works that I have here, which is really beautiful and more visually focused.
Do it.
All right, now we definitely have to I'm reading cool. What it says. What's
Maneuvers for Small Hands?
Okay,
Robert Ashley.
Oh, like you just said. All right.
Look how thick it is.
That's a really big book for small hands.
Right. And it's got this cool green thing.
Oh wow.
And it's all these folio sheets. I got to be careful with them. I think I'm the only one with the copy, but let me get to the good stuff. It's all these really immaculately drawn maneuvers, all these really complex instructions. I think it's for somebody playing piano. Yes, it is. Anyway, I could go on, but it's beautiful.
That is so cool.
It's a beautiful, beautiful piece.
Yeah, that doesn't look like most sheet music that I've seen.
Right. Well, that's the thing, right? Yeah, it's different. It's about the gesture. I'm just showing it because I think it's an indication of like what we were talking about earlier, that you have to make your own score, that it's like about the process of dealing with the conceptual material, which is this really wonderful consequence of speech as music, is that the conceptual material becomes more important than the aesthetic arrangement. Would you guys say that's true, Dave and Gelsey, or did I just say something weird?
I think it's intriguing what you said. I'm not sure I agree with it, but I'm intrigued.
I'm good at doing things like that.
I mean, it's definitely like the objects that are left behind have a certain importance when there's not like direct instructions for replication, right? Because like a lot of how classical music as we understand it was a byproduct of the fact you couldn't record anything. So if you wanted people to follow directions, you had to leave really explicit directions. And then as soon as you have recordings, you can kind of, it's sort of like the impact of photography on painting.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
absolutely.
Huge.
And that's why I think Bob's work is so inspiring, is because he's like going back, skipping all that stuff and going back to like Purcell. Like if you look at Purcell's scores, like he's the one who like, when I am laid in earth and all that stuff. His scores are just basically like chord charts, like figured bass. It's like telling the musicians like, well, I don't know, figure it out. Here's the chords, work it out.
Well, and I think it's a little more complicated than that.
It is, but I'm being.
Yeah, during that time in Western music history.
Lay it on us, Professor Bell.
Well, I mean, what do you?
It's true. I mean that non-ironically.
There was practice, right? So like the score was what people felt like they needed to get across. You start with this. It's not that you only have an oral practice and a literary practice. A huge amount of Western music history has been a combination of both of them. So if you have any scores with fingered bass, it's a combination of like what was done in practice and what is the information that is needed that is not already known, that you haven't learned by just being part of a culture. So now we have recordings, which adds this like whole other element to both the literary and oral practice, because it's not like music ever stopped being somewhat oral practice. We all take lessons, like, pop musicians that don't have teachers, they still have a community of musicians that they're existing within. So anyway, sorry, I just...
Oh, no, that's like...
Don't apologize, that was awesome.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do in life is say stupid things around smart people so they correct me, and I get that like...
And then
that's how you learn stuff.
Yeah, it's true. That's great. Totally. Good tactic.
Yeah, make the other people do the intellectual labor. There we go.
Right. It's like productive trolling, I guess.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I'm right there with you.
So do you all know the names of the dogs? Except for Dan. Dan knows the names of the dogs.
Do I know the names of the dogs?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I do know the names of the dogs, yeah.
I know they were speaking Spanish. I mean, I think maybe they were. Dave?
I don't know the names of the dogs, no.
No, me neither.
It's McGruff and Lassie. No, it's a permanence and impermanent.
Right.
Yeah, we when we were talking to the Tristero group, they were saying like they just figured out that.
Well, John told them.
John told them, yeah.
And they were, I mean, to me, I've only seen this once. So like, oh, okay, I just didn't catch it the first time, but
Or the second, or the third, or the fourth.
Right.
Yeah, it's also funny because I feel like when we're like in the mode of rehearsing and performing, I'm just like constantly hearing quotes in my head, but it's been a while. So I feel like...
It's been 5 years.
Yeah, I feel like the information is not as front in my brain as it once was.
I guess we did the bank more recently. We've done the bank as a one-off a few times.
Yeah.
I feel like it always kind of comes to me like after Obi-Wan Kenobi dies in the first Star Wars movie and he's just like floating over the person's head, like it's like talking in these short kind of cryptic fragments. Except it's a higher quality, much I feel like that's how it kind of sits in my head.
Yeah.
But like I don't know, like Brian and David, like how when you're not working on it, does it ever like I guess like how does it sublet the space in your head that it takes up?
For me, it sublets like emotional space, which can be really nice. So for example, during this talk, I've got my copy out, which as you can see is pretty beat up. It's been through a lot. But as soon as I start looking through it, some of the lines, it's just like I just get chills all through my body and I'm almost like starting to cry. It's like so the intellectual stuff in it, or there are some concepts in it that used to stick with me more, especially the stuff in the bar about the self being ageless and about attainment. I think the thing that maybe sticks with me the most is actually also in the bar. It's about industry.
Oh yeah, that whole thing. Yeah, that like
classic. It's so
that's
good.
really interesting to think about in this like crazy pandemic. What's happening to our industry right now? Yeah, totally.
What can and can't be part of industry?
It feels like sermons, right? So it's like, okay, what passage do we need for our current political moment?
I will read the passage that we need for a current, well, maybe not for our political moment, but definitely for our economic moment. We'll set politics aside for now because that's a whole, but I think, let's say, markings of the history of Boogie Woogie stretch out in all directions. I think that's the way history stretches out. Quote, television is neither true nor false. It's industry. Television made without industry, alone, in a word, can cause a sinking feeling. There can be a loss of trust. Fear not darkness, i.e. not industry, nor your own desire. Everybody works to be a part of industry. To be a part of industry is to be real. If you're a part of industry, both in your industriousness and in the nature of your work, there's a chance that everybody will like your work because it is part of industry. And things that are not a part of industry are not possible to like. Likability is less important than recognition by the industry. And that's a reason to be serious. Unquote.
Amen.
Ooh.
Thank you, Bob.
Drop the mic.
It also, I think that it's something that becomes like when Paul or Eliza or any of us are in the same place, it's just very easy to like slip into the referential bit of it. And I think it's at this point, since we've done so many of Bob's work, plural, it's sometimes, and since they're also related, right? Like Improvement, the characters in Improvement are all named, not all, but are mostly named in The Bank. And so for my mind, it's like, it's very fused together and there'll be some language or some tune or some idea from one of the things. And then it just kind of like, it's very pleasant to just sit there. And particularly if the five of us are around each other and can sort of express that, it's like a little language that we share.
Okay, now I'm going to read to you my favorite portion, one I find most meaningful. 1 G in fogs, 2 G's in eggs.
I'm going to grab a prop this time. Give me 1 second.
Which is actually how at first I was like, I don't know what's going on and I'm totally lost and I don't know what to do. And Dan gave me the libretto and he said, read this to follow along. I'm like, I barely understand what's on here and I can't see what's going on a screen. And I'm like, okay, I'll just.
And then you realize you were hungry.
And then I realized I was hungry. That's what was really going on. No, then I got that bit. I'm like, you know what? I just need to be here experiencing it. I don't need to have to go and focus on any one particular word or phrase or anything like that. If oh yes, that's excellent.
Great.
So our friend,
that's like a ticket.
No, so our friend Woody, who played tabla in a couple of the versions that we've done, who is a bookmaker and conceptual artist and other things. I think this was right when he went to grad school and had access to a lot of stuff, he was making all these bookmarks. Mm-hmm. And I think, Ron, this is also one of Woody's favorite lines in the piece. So if you were looking for a limited run bookmark with your favorite quote on it, I can reach out to Woody and see if he has any of these left.
All right, that'd be
when you guys do Perfect Lives New Zealand, you're gonna have to change it to 2 E's and Eags.
2 E's and Eags. 1 E in Fegs, 2 E's in Eags.
We need like a house band for this show, Ron. We got to get like.
Yeah, you got to get a drummer to just be on the Zoom call. Doesn't say anything, but just there for those moments.
Okay, you can't really hear that. I don't have drumsticks, nor can I play the drums. So
right, because like right now we got 2 Ed McMahons, right? Like.
Yeah, right.
Well, no, I'm usually the one that's laughing. That's my job.
Well, cool.
So how many times have you all each seen Perfect Lives? Whether so not you're performing it, but seen either the actual television opera that was broadcast, or seen others perform it?
Oh, I have no idea. So many.
Yeah.
Countless.
I think once we started performing it, I definitely watched it less, but listened more.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and there's certain episodes I've spent, like the episodes that I've been the lead arranger on, I've spent a lot more time with. Yeah, a lot though. I mean, that's the thing when the recording becomes part of the score, right?
Right. So do you go back and watch your own performances of it and watch and listen?
I never do, ever, not once. I still haven't seen them. I still don't know what they look like.
Not once? I've seen them at least once.
Oh, not once. I hate watching myself perform. I never do it.
I would say I do it for the music sometimes because like Paul's arrangement of the church, for instance, he wrote all these tunes that are very different from the way the tune goes in Bob's version, and he used a lot of chord progressions from Rocky movies. I don't think he'll mind me tipping his cards about that. So like I
gotta go back now.
So sometimes it's just like I'll want to hear the particular tune where it's like, she is a pea monkey, sir. I dreamed one evening long ago of marrying a pea monkey, sir, which is very different from the original. And I'll just be like, oh, I want to hear how Paul did that one time. Or like, I want to hear how Gelsey did that version of The Backyard. Like, I want to hear Brian doing the bank, like again, less
that's
for the
gonna
visual.
Go over great when you guys do Perfect Lives Philadelphia.
we were
so close.
We were so close to doing Philly. Yeah. Someday.
Twice. At least twice. We were so close. But yeah, I mean, that's a good point, actually. When we do end up doing it, because we'll have to Rocky out the whole thing.
Just the whole thing will be Eye of the Tiger.
It'll be but I mean, like Paul is a serious like Rocky scholar. So like, the one of the first scenes in Rocky 1 where Frank Stallone and his friends are around the trash and they're like, take it back, do, take it back. Like that's definitely gonna get worked in. All the Bill Conti like fancy disco. It's gonna be great.
We're just gonna all wear gray sweatpants, shirts.
Right, you'll have to add like an extra episode called the Meat Packing Plant.
Oh my God! Yeah, the percussion in that episode's gonna be really amazing. Yeah.
So now I'm imagining all of you running up and down the steps while performing.
Yeah, we're in great physical shape.
While playing, yeah.
People say that we are the nicest band in new music, the most attractive band in new music, and in the best shape of any band in new music. It's on the record.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys could probably beat up the other Perfect Lives groups we've interviewed.
Totally.
I don't know.
I mean, Waterman's pretty big. He's a big guy.
But I bet we could just like one person distracts him and then we could figure it out. We know him psychologically well enough.
Yeah,
probably more. Yeah.
Paul's strong. Eliza's crafty.
Eliza's buff. She's a potter.
Also true. She's pretty ripped.
Yeah.
What you need is someone right behind him, kind of crouched down on the ground, and then as he walks slightly back, he falls over.
Oh yeah.
Episode 8, The Ring.
Right.
Paul is, by the way, has been for many years writing a boxing opera.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no shit. Which involves like the percussion sound of somebody punching a punching bag. So,
and that I mean, I don't know if that would like that explains the Rocky thing or the Rocky thing explains that, but I'm getting a bigger picture. This is the tip of a very interesting iceberg.
Oh yeah. Whereas Dave wrote an opera about the Al Gore, the hearings after Al Gore after Al Gore lost the election to Bush, called "The Gentleman Rests."
The certification of the election. Yeah.
Are you serious? Oh wow.
Brian's got
we're probably ready for a revival of that.
I have it right here. Yeah, it was. It's a very good production. Dave, you're so... Look, there's some text. Uh-oh, sheet music. Sorry, cat's out of the bag.
Music.
Stop it, Brian. You're embarrassing me.
Your postmodern credentials are revoked.
I hope this doesn't become relevant.
Oh, yeah, right, exactly. I unfortunately might leave the call soon as it is getting towards dinner time.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
So I guess before we lose anybody, where can people find you guys? Find Varispeed, find you individually, find these seemingly bottomless rabbit hole of like operas and pieces about unorthodox subjects, all these like singles and albums and
there's so much. Well, we all have individual websites. Varispeed has a website. Google is an amazing tool. I think if you Google any of our names and the word music, you will find what you need to find. No one else in the world has my name, so I'm very easy to find. But I think our website is varispeedcollective.com.
I think it's .com. I'm gonna double check on that because I can't remember.
Oh,
but
yeah, we have an album of empty words. There's lots of cool videos.
Yeah, plug the merch.
Yeah, right.
If we're doing it video style, like go all out.
Yeah.
We are on, I believe, Instagram and Twitter now, which is only in the last year have we done that. But yeah, and there were some videos of us doing the blurring test from this past January that got posted by the Exponential Festival. So that's the thing we are currently working on, and there's a bit of that out there too. I'll stop talking.
It's endless. There's so much stuff. Artists, man, we just keep making things.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
It's like every one of these interviews we do, there's like 100 more things I got to check out when I get off the phone call.
Oh yeah, it's endless.
And Brian did just confirm that varispeedcollective.com is
yes.
Cool. So I guess thanks so much for coming on the call. I feel like I learned a lot in the last, I don't know how long we've all been talking, but probably longer than I think it is. And I guess
if you guys want to keep chatting, it's all good.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna bounce too.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for.
If somebody's like, we got to leave, that I take that as the sign, like, that's a sign, like the guys backstage with the cane, right?
Right.
And it has actually been an hour and a half, so it's
okay.
It's felt like less than that, but I come like, oh, hey, look at that. Well, Kelsey, when he said it was, at dinner time, like, oh yeah,
The stomachs are rumbling.
Yeah.
Right, but Dell LT 6230 does not need your human food.
Yeah. But I heard that there are 2 dozen eggs, and my stomach's starting to grumble. So
there you go.
Yeah.
I wish you all good eggs.
So this has been Anomaly Questionable Movies. We've had on guests Brian McCorkle, Kelsey Bell, and David Reuter of the Varispeed Collective. And I'm still Dan, and Ron's still Ron, and we'll see you all next week.
And thank you all for coming on. This has been a lovely experience. There we go. Does lovely?
Yeah, I had a lot of
acceptable.
A lot of fun. Learned a lot today. So
yeah. Cool.
All
right. Well, thanks a lot. All right.
Have a good dinner.
Good night, you guys.
Not just the audience too.
Goodbye, audience.